you please take roll?
Ms. Atkins. Mr. Hendricks.
Here.
Mr. Houston.
Here.
Mrs. McDaniel. Mr. Stoffer.
Here.
Mr. Wyledge.
Here.
Mrs. Sheppel.
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the October 4th, 2021 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any,
Only thing that I wanted to remind the board, I had said in your weekly update.
oh, that's right.
That I think it would be wise, just since we've got 3 closed session topics, to move 7.06, which is not an action item, come back out of closed fully and do the action items, so anybody waiting around and even some of my staff can go on home, we can go back and close and
Okay,
do 7.06.
is that all right with everyone?
Yes.
Good with me.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins. Yes. Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer.
Yep.
Mr. Wyledge.
Yes.
Mrs. Sheppel.
Yes. Commendation and good news.
Dave?
I did not have anything special.
Now, just, once again, I don't think we can talk about this enough, they're, obviously the cat's out of the bag about the high school being a national blue ribbon school, and kids now know it, and staff knows it, and it's just a great thing to celebrate and a great thing to remind folks that that just doesn't happen by osmosis. It really is a concerted effort over a number of years, and it's a pretty exciting thing. So I think there's still some buzz. Things were a little flat at the high school today. It's Monday after homecoming, but beyond that, it's just it's a great feeling to know that LC has a national blue ribbon school that'll be celebrated here in November at our country's capital. So that's worth talking about again. Other than that,
I was gonna say homecoming week went off and we were
Yeah.
able to have all the celebrations and it was nice too.
yeah, absolutely.
That is good news. Okay, we'll go on to comments and suggestions. This is a portion of our agenda that anyone in the audience or anyone online, if they want to type something in, can address the board. Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have an updated personnel sheet?
There are 2 additions, one a paraeducator in section B, and one classified staff change in section I.
In L? Okay. Is there any discussion?
The item, the change order, that's still within our parameters, correct?
No, I mean, not really. That's the one I've been communicating with the board. We've already went ahead with it. Obviously, it's the district agreed to. It's a formality to have the board president sign it. But referring to the bike trail path.
But we're not going over budget. It's still in, is there some contingency for that?
No, it's not pushing us over budget at all.
Okay.
No, it's all within, I mean, it's all along, we spent more money on the paths than we intended. We know that.
Absolutely.
We traveled many paths, no pun intended, to try to offset that,
Yes.
but to no avail. So, but absolutely, that's an absolute of us
Okay.
staying in total budget. And now we know, we're holding to the agreed upon on time of December 22nd for the ops building and
Okay.
that project to be complete.
Any other questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Vote please.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge.
Yes.
Ms. Atkins.
Yes.
Mrs. Sheppel.
Yes. Report 6.01 COVID updates.
Yes. Just, thank you, Josh. Josh back there sending me tips.
Okay.
Told me to get my mic closer for the COVID update. Okay, well, I think, I'm always cautious in how I report out on COVID, but I'm feeling good for a multitude of reasons. And I'll start by just saying what we talked about 2 weeks ago in this meeting was a new plan to address how we would handle COVID and adding any further mitigation efforts back in, including the potential if we would ever, what would cause us to put a requirement for masks back in. And we had assembled a carefully thought out plan that was kind of a combination of some things that we had researched around the country. And I rolled that out at the last meeting. The board had some thoughts about that, and then we announced it publicly. And so the long and short of that, just as a reminder for anybody listening, is that we are constantly monitoring for a 3% threshold in each building. So at any point in time that we have 3% of our student and staff population positive with COVID, the 3% being the threshold, and if we hit that or go beyond that, we would then put a requirement for the utilization of masks in place for 2 weeks and continuing to monitor. So we've monitored the numbers for a couple weeks, and just to kind of give the public, of course, we send this out. All parents get their building updates and their principal's notes. If you don't know that's in there, and if you're not reading your principal's notes, encourage parents to do that. But to give an example, again, 3.0 being our threshold, the high school, and we do that as a rolling 3-day average in the middle part of the week, or the middle to the end part of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The high school's last Friday was 0.19. The middle school's was 0.4. Titan Hills was 0.84, and Crafts was 0.75. So again, that's those are pretty decent numbers when we're looking at 3 for that threshold. And we've had so far this year, we've had some times, even if our new plan would have been in place, that it would have been really close to being challenged, but that it hasn't hit that 3% threshold yet. A couple times it looked like it was heading that way. It's ebbing and flowing. Right now it's ebbing and flowing in the right direction, and we like the trajectory, which is kind of consistent with what we're seeing. If you look at the CDC's numbers across the country, we are definitely seeing that it appears things have peaked. I mentioned that last time. We were hopeful that that looks like what it had done. Now it definitely appears that that's what's happened. And so hopefully we're going to see this trajectory continue. Our numbers even come out of the weekend to today. It's kind of typically what happens. We get a few numbers back where people come off of the quarantine because they were positive, and we have a few more go on. But the concerning times are when you have a few come back and 3 times as many go out because of positive. So didn't have that today, so it looks like the potential for the trajectory to continue is there, but we're sure it will ebb and flow, and we'll continue to monitor that. I said I wanted to mention the plan again, just setting that up to talk about the numbers. And by the way, the total number in the district today is 21. So we have 21 positive cases right now in our students and staff. Just to give you a little perspective with that, our high point already this year was 36, and our high point last year, still by far the most challenging time with COVID for us, was last November when we had 44. So that just gives a little perspective of where we're at. Again, I'm sure that will ebb and flow. We may even have some times where we sweat a little bit again, but it at least appears that the trajectory is going in the right direction. So that's good news. What I wanted to comment, though, and I don't know who all is listening or how many we have online, but even just for this word to circulate, that just how thankful I am for what I consider an outpouring of communications that came after I communicated our plan forward. And I think I was very honest in that communication, stating that the goal was to define a middle ground again, because there was this very divisive line down the middle, and everybody was on this side with their philosophy and on this side with their philosophy. And I feel strongly that LC is bigger than that, better than that, and we're all very proud of this district, and we don't want to spiral into a district where people are, you know, arguing on social media and being ugly about things. So the goal with that plan was to say, yes, we're absolutely concerned about COVID. We want to do the right thing. We also want to realize that we've got many different schools of thought, and we want to address them both. And that's what we try to do with the plan. There's some compromise. If you are a 100% mask person, you've got to compromise a little to accept that plan, because it's not 100% mask. If you're 100% never a mask, you got to compromise a little, because it's not 100% never a mask. The outpouring of communications that I got from folks that have been critics on both sides, who were thankful and appreciated it for what it was, appreciated the attempts at unity, felt that they could get behind it, whether they were strongly for or strongly against, one way or the other. It was just a good feeling to see the community settling down a little bit with the rhetoric, again, on both sides, not referring to one, when I say rhetoric, I don't mean one school of thought. And I just felt things lift a little bit. And then that, in tandem with the trajectory of our numbers starting to look good, it's just left me with a pretty good feeling right now. So I reserve the right to have days where I don't feel so good, but right now I think that we're doing what we can. There are some challenges that still last with COVID, and I let the board know that every day. It does cause some staff shortages in some cases with employee groups. Shortages, it makes it more of an issue because they are shortages we are already experiencing. And then when we have a staff member out due to quarantining because of a positive case, it makes that much more challenging. So there's some things, and when you're trying to keep morale up and people know certain levels of detail aren't quite there because of these things, you have to nurture that a little bit, and we're doing that. We're all doing that. We're all feeling the weight, if you will, of what everybody's feeling. And no matter who you talk to, I saw an article today. I was sharing this with, no, it wasn't Randy. I was sharing this with Joel and Dr. Beinhoff in the high school today. Saw an article this morning, a national article on the impact of COVID, and it was not what you think. And it was all about shortages of bus drivers, custodians, and service-oriented folks in school districts, and how it's changing the path of how school districts operate. So we're not alone. We never have been alone. We've all been dealing with things that all of our counterparts are dealing with as well. But right now, I think we can breathe a little easier, and we've got some plans in place for dealing with some of the byproducts of COVID. The staffing issues, we're working through some things. I've given the board some updates on some of those ideas, and we're feeling good about the trajectory. So we'll continue on. I'll continue to report to the board, and hopefully I'll continue to have at least relatively good news going forward.
Absolutely, thank you. And hopefully our numbers will stay low.
Yep.
And we'll never have to go to that plan. But we do have something that absolutely, if people can get behind, just to understand what we're trying to do here.
Right.
Okay, then we will go on to discussion items. 7.01, middle school duct and insulation repair bid.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give a general synopsis of this, and then we've got Randy here to add any thoughts that he may have or to answer any question that the board may have. But we've had some duct work at the middle school that I think it predates me, it predates Randy, it predates Andrea, but some damaged duct work on the building. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Obviously it appears that it's relative to storms and whatnot. And I think it's easy to overlook because it's not out there in the front and center for everybody to walk by and see. You gotta know it's there, or you gotta have a reason to be up there looking at it. We can take care of it now. We've been operating like this. I think there's some efficiency concerns. Those who know about HVAC, there's a reason that you insulate and put jackets on ductwork. And there's definitely some problems with this. I think it behooves us. It's not a small ticket item, but I think it behooves us to get it taken care of while we can. And so Randy has got the bids, and he's recommending Midwest Insulation. And Randy, any additional thoughts to that? Yeah. Yeah, PEPAL funding.
And then this actually serves the corridor outside of the big gym at the middle school, the one that runs north and south. Well, on the west side of that corridor is classrooms, so it serves those classrooms, and go north and then take a left going west at the 6th grade level, that area, and it serves the classrooms on the south side of that area. But the contractor's good to go. Temperatures are good as far as their adhesive goes for the rigid insulation, being tacked to the ductwork.
And some ductwork would be replaced. Some of
Yeah,
the
some
heavily
will be
damaged
replaced.
ductwork would be replaced.
Yeah. It's pretty cut and dry.
Is there any questions?
Will there be any impact to school temperatures and stuff as they replace ductwork?
No, there might be some of that, Bob, but for the most part, we can go up there and we can take the insulation off that's up there right now. The fiberglass, and then we can take measurements, but October 15th is there's no kids. And so the idea is we'll get up there, they get a crew up on the roof, we'll replace the ductwork that needs to be replaced, right? And that's the noisy stuff, and then the efficiency of taking that system down, and then the rigid insulation and the jacket can be done during the day. That's not gonna be noisy. But, so yeah, so we have a plan.
Can the system run during, obviously it can't run when the ductwork's being done, but can it run during the installation process?
The insulation?
Yeah.
SUL? I'm sorry. Yeah, yes, it can. Yeah. It's running right now.
Yeah, exactly. That was my assumption, but I didn't wanna risk misspeaking to that point. But I think Bob's question's a good one. We always worry about interruption to
Yeah.
service in the building, and fortunately, at least according to Rusty anyway, on Channel 6, he's my go-to.
Go-to.
But he thinks we're done with the 90 degrees for, even though we're having a little bit of a warmer patch again, but I think the timing's good coming up. We're not gonna have extremely hot
They
days.
can get it done, and it's to the point too, the last two bids are really close, $70.
Yeah.
That was amazing, but, if they're an hour away from getting done on October 15th, or they have to come back for another 4 hours, they can come back on Saturday, the 16th, and finish up and be, not so disruptive. I told them to include that. So they need to figure out their crew, they need to figure out their productivity. This is more like, hey, this is the situation, we need it fixed. So it's more like a performance and not anything other than that. They know we're in school, we're not gonna inconvenience them, the kids and the teachers. So,
Okay, are there any other questions?
Was this something that could have or should have been turned in on insurance years ago?
Yeah, we're still trying to research that.
Gotcha.
But the answer is absolutely. We just don't know the specific incident, or I think we were speculating it was, as much as maybe 9 years old? Yeah, so it's a little while back.
Okay.
And, it quite possibly could have been, and then, again, out of sight, out of mind.
Overlooked or?
Whatever, but it's obviously, I'm sure it's even, what we're seeing now is much worse deterioration than what even they would have saw back then. So the time is right. We know it's there now, and shame on us if we if we
Don't do it, yeah. Oh, no,
ignore it any
no,
longer.
Yeah, because the roof, almost all that roof's newer than that period of time.
Good point.
Yeah, I think the roof on the gymnasium, that white part, is newer, for sure.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. 7.02, 702, 703, 704, series policies, reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the second read.
So, as I had introduced on the first read of these policies, just a small chunk that kind of wrapped up the 700 series, because as we get closer and closer to the end of our complete policy review and revamp, which is kind of exciting to know that there's the light's right there. It's right there, real close. We're getting very close. But we'll see a lot of shifting of 800s to 700s, 900s to 800s, 1000s to 900s. In fact, I don't think we'll have 1,000 series anymore when we get done. So there are more when we get into the 800s, which you're going to see that first chunk next. But there are some added back to the 700s. So nothing real challenging here. I think I had shared last time there was one add specific, the cash and school buildings. I had Andrea review that. Not anything that we've ever had. It matches our protocol, but it's good to have a policy for something like that when you're talking about cash and school buildings, because there are plenty of case studies out there where that has led to some issues. So it's good to have a policy. But these are not modified from the first read. I had no questions or any follow-up reasons to change anything from the first read. So they are intact as they were on the first read. And now before you for a second read.
Is there any questions or discussion on any of these policies on the second read? All right. We'll go to 7.03, 801 to 804, series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the first read.
So what you'll see here, again, this is a little more like the typical number of policies I've been bringing in chunks. A lot of business office stuff, a lot of things that I've had Andrea review in this role, and even going forward some more. There's a lot of keep. If you look down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 policies that are just keeping, and we're either renumbering, updating the legal references. I'm sorry to sound like a broken record when I say that every time we bring policies, but those are the big chunk of what we're doing. Renumbering, better alignment. There are some ads. Most of the ads are specific to if there's enough changes in the legal language. Sometimes it just makes sense to just delete ours and add the recommended IASB. When I don't do that, it's when we've had something specific that we've added to our language is maybe unique to us. That's when I don't do that. But when it's pretty similar, I'll just change them out. There are two examples again of adding. One on vandalism. We really didn't have a policy on vandalism, so there's a recommended IASB policy, and one on energy conservation. Good example of what we just talked about. There's nothing in the energy conservation that is mind-numbing or earth-shattering, but it's good for us to have a policy that says we are interested in our energy conservation when we are taxpayers, are stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And I think that shows, again, it's with our protocol that's in place, but those are the two in there that are ads that don't correlate to an existing policy that we have. So other than that, pretty straightforward, no great departures from anything that I need to tell you about. And of course, on the first read, As always, between now and next, if there's anything we need to change, we can, as we continue to review, and if there's any questions or thoughts, the board can surely send them my way, and if changes are needed, and when I bring them back the second time, we'll add any necessary changes.
Is there any questions or comments about these policies on the first read?
In 704.4, the grants or gifts policy, it doesn't set a dollar threshold. So, I mean, because you could interpret this to mean if I give the district $1, someone has to approve it and keep track of it, and
Yeah, that's.
just seems like there should be a dollar threshold in there.
It's definitely a good question, Bob, and all I'll say on that one is, the reason it's simply a renumber is because there were no recommendations from IASB to do anything different with what we had, so, that's why there's no recommended change, but that's a good question, and I can ask, maybe there's a legal reason why they would say not to, but that's a perfect example of something I can check into and have a answer for that on the second go around, and either a change or an explanation.
Yeah, no, I read through it the first time and it's like, well, yeah, that's what our policy is, but then
Yeah.
I read it tonight and it's like, well, there's not really a dollar amount there,
Yep.
so
Yep,
could make it an administrative kind of nightmare if you don't
Sure.
have
sure.
at least some level.
All right, we'll look into that. Thank
Right,
you.
And that makes sense, too. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we're all right with those on the first read, and we'll go to 7.04, open enrollment requests. And open enrollment can be under closed session per Iowa Code 21.51A. Closed session is appropriate to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential. And that would also be for the employee request
Yep.
for other paid or unpaid leave. And we would, Andrew, we would need to go into closed session, then come out of closed session, then vote to go back into closed session right away?
Correct.
Okay, so right now we need closed session for the open enrollment request, 7.04. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. Shevel?
Yes. Okay, we are in closed. open session. The next item is 7.06, superintendent's goals. That will be in closed session. Dr. Knos, you have asked that to be in
Yes, ma'am, I have.
closed session? Okay. So we will go ahead on to the rest of the agenda and then come back so then people can leave, since there's no action item on that. So the next thing is comments and suggestions. The second portion of our agenda that anyone in our audience or online could type anything to address the board. And the one thing I did not, walking in right at 6:30, I saw this, that Dr. Knos had mentioned about the Blue Ribbon School. And we did receive this card, but recognized staff member, it's the school board. You've helped make us a Blue Ribbon School. Thank you for your commitment to Lewis Central High School. I want to recognize you for going above and beyond for the following reasons. You have shown dedication and consideration for students, staff, and the community. We/you provide for the present and build to the future. And the nominating staff member, Ellen Straight, and I don't know if I've ever seen your full signature. Is that your administrator?
No, that's not
That
mine.
is from
That actually
the-
makes mine look good. That's Joel Bionoff's signature.
Joel Bionoff, okay. I should have thought about that, it's just an administrator, and so I will give this to Andrea and thank them for this recognition for the school board. All right, no comments and suggestions, so we'll go to action items. 9.01, middle school ductwork and insulation repair bid.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion, the board approve Midwest Insulation as the company to complete the ductwork installation and jacket installation as presented in the amount of $31,930.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.02, 702, 703, 704 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the second read.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve policies currently included in the 702, 703, 704, and 403 series and all accompanying regulations and exhibits as presented on the second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.03, 801 to 804 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the first read.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve policies currently included in the 800, 801, 802, 803, and 804 series and all accompanying regulations and exhibit as presented and discussed on the first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.04, open enrollment requests for
Ma-
student A.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I have two motions. I'll make them one at a time. I have a motion to approve the open enrollment request for student A as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. And for student B?
And a motion to deny the open enrollment request for student B as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.05, employee request for other paid or unpaid leave. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve the additional pay and leave as discussed.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. Items of interest, or next board meeting will be October 18th at 6:30. We will now go back to 7.06, superintendent goals, which is in closed session. Is there anything else before we take that motion?
No, I was just on the way back in, bringing Dave and Josh back in. I mentioned this room has to get set up for new teacher follow-up to orientation tomorrow. And I had said to Josh, well, that's okay, we'll adjourn to the other room. My only concern from a standpoint of Robert's rules and so on and so forth, I think we still have to come out of closed and come back into open and close out the meeting officially. So, and also the fact that we're online, I kind of feel that to do this right, we probably need to stay intact. I hate to do that to you, Josh, because I know you're. I'll sleep in tomorrow. And you have my permission, actually, so.
I heard that. I'll document that for you.
Right.
It's true.
So I think we probably should stay put for that reason, so everything's still set up, and then we can come back out, close out, and then.
Okay, so we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss superintendent goals.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
We have to vote.
Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. Okay.